All right, Sam, here we are.
Yep.
Nice cold February 1st today. So for those of you who are here already, or for those of you who are watching this as a replay, thanks for logging in. Thanks for watching us. Sam and I are going to talk about pressure movement in the golf swing. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes here to hopefully get logged in and start seeing what we're going to be talking about. This is kind of an interesting topic we've got today.
Yeah, so it'll be good for you just to kind of get an understanding of what we're really doing through the golf swing. And really, honestly, it's going to help you play better golf and just have a general understanding of it, Todd.
So we're getting live right now. We're getting things logged up. So we got a few people logging in already. So one of the things we like to do, make sure the volume's turned down so we don't get a lot of feedback, is once you log in, let us know where you're from, because we'd like to hear where everybody's from. We get people from all over the world sometimes. So once you get in there, jot it in the chat and let us know where you're from. It's plugged in here. We're based out of South Dakota. It's nice and cold today.
Oh, it's perfect. That's what we're used to it.
All right. So we got a couple people logging in. So hopefully this week we got Phoenix.
Yes.
The Phoenix Open starting up. So we got a chance to go to that last year. Pretty cool experience.
I've not been there, but it's on the bucket list for sure.
Yeah.
Just kind of experience it.
A couple weeks ago we were out there, and I was working with one of my students who actually used to practice out at the TPC. I don't know if anybody's been there before. If you have, give us a shout out. But they had the stands were already up, and it was really cool.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was all I could do not to grab a couple clubs and go over to, I think it's 16.
Oh yeah.
Par 3 and hit a couple shots, but
anybody in the stands?
no.
Is there any? Oh, yeah. That helps.
Nobody was there. Nobody was there. So, all right, we're going to get rolling here and talk about we're going to talk about pressure movement today. So, like I said, if you just logged in, give us a shout out in the chat. Let us know where you're from, or if you got any questions, be sure to type those in there. So I've got my teaching partner here today, Sam, and we're going to talk about pressure movement in the golf swing, because it's kind of a confusing topic for a lot of people, but it has a lot to do with the golf swing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Just what your body's doing is really going to affect what the actual club is doing just through the dynamic golf swing.
So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to pressure movement in the golf swing is, first of all, let's define actually what pressure is. So we got Nick behind the camera again today, so our regular camera guy. Nick, thanks for helping us out.
You betcha.
We use a swing catalyst system, and this is what we call pressure plate. So they've got pressure plates, they've also got force plates. There's a variety of different things out there, but we use the pressure plate. And pressure, most golfers when they think of pressure, I think would you agree that Sam, they probably think of like weight?
Exactly, yeah. A lot of times, they're actually two different things, and we're going to talk a little bit about it, but they're definitely misunderstood.
Yeah. So as a golfer, you probably are thinking of, when you're talking about pressure, you're thinking about, like I said, your weight, or like how much weight do I have on one foot, but it's actually pressure. And how that pressure, or you might feel it's, like I said, weight, how that moves has a big impact, obviously, on your golf swing. And so one of the things that we profess, that we're big believers of, is in the setup. So in the setup, what's the phrase we like to use a lot?
60-40.
60-40.
Yes.
60-40. Our kids and our students hear that nonstop. So when we say 60-40, what we're talking about is we want to see about 60% of the pressure, might feel like weight to you, on the lead foot, and 40% on the right foot. So there's a reason for that. Dan, what do you think? Any ideas as to why we might do that?
Absolutely. So in the golf swing, it's a little bit different than other sports. We're static, so we're in a position where we're not moving. So we like to have a little bit of pressure on that front foot, so it helps us actually unweight. So when you start the golf swing, you want to have a little bit of a push off just to get your momentum going to the backswing. So that's really why we do it, and it helps us kind of get all that pressure shifting to our trail side, Todd.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if we profess 60-40, it doesn't have to be exactly 60-40, but typically that's what we like to see. If it's 55-45, something like that, that's fine. But let's actually, Nick, let's see if we can do this. Let's see if we can pull up, I'm going to see if we can pull up an actual swing here. Okay, yeah, so if you can pull this up here, we're looking at right here. Hopefully you guys can see that. So this is the swing catalyst system that we use. So this is the left foot, and this over here would be the right foot. And this little kind of golf ball looking thing right here is the center of pressure on that left foot or that lead foot. And this one over here on the right is the center of pressure on the right foot. So this particular student has a 51% lead foot, 49% on the right foot. Their stance width is roughly around 18 inches. So this is excellent. This is something that we like to see. They're a little bit left side heavy. They could be maybe a little bit more. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, she's pretty much there the whole time. Now, this is the combined center of pressure and the movement of the two. So this is what we kind of call your pressure traces. We're going to talk about a little bit here today as we dive into this topic. So I'm going to go ahead and just let this play through a little bit so you can actually watch the movement of that as it goes kind of back and through. Okay, so we start here. You'll notice it's pretty centered. And as we start this, now we're working the backswing, so you'll see the pressure increasing into the right foot, something we believe big, and we're going to talk about some different philosophies there. So we get upwards of about 68% on the trail foot, and that happens, we're going to talk about when that happens, and then it starts moving obviously towards the target. This particular student gets a little bit toe heavy, using the ground to push off, and then kind of circles back around. So this is what an actual pressure movement, kind of looks like. It works a little bit to the right, towards the heel, then works towards the target and kind of circles back around. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's see if we can close that off here. So if you've got any questions on that, be sure to let us know. So what we saw there was what we call the pressure trace.
Yes.
Do you think, Sam, is there one pressure trace for everybody, or what do you think?
You see all sorts of pressure traces, and to be honest, you can have efficient pressure traces. They're not always the same. We kind of look for one, kind of a universal one, but no one has the same pressure trace. So, good golfers are going to have a little bit different of each one, but yeah, so everyone kind of has a different one.
Yeah, I like to look at it, it's almost like your fingerprint. And so, yes, there's certain common things that we like to see, or maybe might be kind of textbook. But the truth of the matter is that it's like your fingerprint. There's a variety of different things that we see there. So here's something that we like to see. So we talked about the 60-40 early in the setup. So let me borrow the club
Yes.
here, Sam. And let's have you jump in there. Let's get you in there, all right? And so we're set up there. So one of the things that we like to see, in addition to the 60-40, as Sam mentioned earlier, we got 60% left, 40% right. And the reason we like that is because we want to see a little bit of push off. We want to see as he starts this backswing, he's what we would call almost like unweighting. So he starts a little left heavy and then unweights, and we want to see that pressure track back and towards the right heel. So we start pretty centered. We push off the left foot and we work back towards the right heel. Now, one of the reasons we like to work back towards the right heel is because we want to load into the right glute so we got something to work off. Sam, talk to us a little bit about your thoughts on the trail leg, because that's a pretty big point of difference in a lot of instructors. Some like to keep the knee bent, and I'd be curious to hear from people out there. What do you think? Do you like to keep your trail leg, the knee kind of bent? Do you like to release it? If you got some thoughts out there, let's hear from you. But I want to hear Sam's thoughts on that.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. So I think, again, everyone has a different, teaching method or philosophy on this. So we're a big believer in just loading up that leg, so whatever that looks like. So we like to see the leg straight, so that doesn't mean lock our leg. That's always kind of a misconception that we see. But we really believe this right leg to get pressure down into the ground, and which will help with getting that pressure into that heel, we're using it as a kind of a brace. So again, we're kind of pushing into the ground, and when you're looking at the stacked position, Todd, it looks like this leg is straight, which it is, but it's kind of how you got there. It's more about the movement into it instead of the position of it.
Yeah.
So we, again, truly believe that we have kind of more of a center turn here with our company. And again, we're getting into that trail hip just by, using that ground force and, into the ground.
Yeah, so if we start, so to recap, we're starting on the 60-40, little left side heavy. We start to unweight. That pressure, as you saw, kind of that little golf ball looking thing, works into the right heel. And as Sam said perfectly, we're a big believer that the trail leg would release a little bit. So this is one of my favorite pictures. I don't know if Nick can show this, but this is, if you know who this guy is, type it in the chat there. You should know who he's a legend. He's in the Hall of Fame. But you'll notice his trail leg there, and then also the lead leg. So you'll see the trail leg, I wouldn't say it's straight, but it's definitely released. And then the lead leg has added some flex to it.
So maybe we could get a little shot of that down
Yeah.
the line, just so the viewers can kind of get a feel for what that's like going from the address position to the top of the swing. So just kind of watch the lower body. Again, we have that 60-40 to start. I'm going to unweight. When I go back, again, I'm getting that leg released, which kind of looks a little bit straighter. I probably don't have the same look as that guy on that screen, but again, this is kind of what we're looking for. And again, a lot of times this technology is great because we get an idea where the pressure is. The position could look great, but maybe my pressure is not in my trail heel, what we believe. Maybe it's a little bit more in the middle. So
Yeah, it's a great point because you can release the trail leg. You know, you can release the trail leg and keep all your pressure forward.
Yes.
And there are certain systems out there, and you might subscribe to them, and you know they've had some success. People have had some success where they think that they almost kind of stay left for sake of better stretch, right? Okay, and kind of stay there. But this, for those of you who don't know already, this is a picture of Sam Snead. I mean, he's our favorite, isn't he?
He's a legend.
We pull this out a lot. So let's go back to straight on here if we could, Nick. I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to give that to you there, Sam. So we like to see, here's how we describe this. We've got about, let's say, 30% of bend in the trail leg, 30% of bend just for sake of discussion. All right. When we get to the top, we want to see that release. So maybe we've got 15 degree of bend and maybe 45. So I might start 30, 30. And when I get to the top, I'm maybe 15 and 45. All right, and that's just a general rule that we use. But we'd like to see that release a little bit because as Sam said earlier, we want to feel that pressure not only work towards the trail foot, but specifically we want to see it work towards the heel.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you do that, things just start to kind of sync up with your actual swing. So we believe if you get your pressure right with your body, it's going to kind of help put the club in the right position at the top. Yeah. You'll notice things right away. If you're just, it's not so technical, you focus a little bit on your body movement and it's going to improve the rest of your golfing.
Because a lot of people, I think, I've had a lot of success with students just working on that movement with them. And it changes not only, obviously, you know, they're unweight into the heel. All of a sudden their swing maybe gets a little bit better shape in the backswing, helps them improve their downstroke.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Again, just a different way to kind of approach getting better at something. Yeah. Maybe try a different, instruction feedback and see how it works.
So let's talk a little bit about, that's a little bit about just the general things that we like to see in the movement. So we've talked a little bit about why we like 60 left, 40 right. So as Sam said perfectly, we can unweight a little bit. We've talked a little bit about how we want to see that pressure work towards the right heel because we think that's the best place for us to load. Yes. And we'll talk a little bit about the downstroke in a second. All right, and then also when we're into the right heel, maybe it helps our arms and club get in a better position. But let's go back and I'd be curious if anybody out there knows. If you got an answer or if you got any questions, be sure to fire them into the comments there and related to what we're talking about today. We'll be happy to answer those. But I want to talk a little bit, Sam, about where the pressure should be in terms of toe or heel.
Yes.
Because we've talked a little bit about, okay, that's the total pressure, 60 and 40, but is it on the toes, on the heel? What are your thoughts there?
Are we specifically talking about the top of the swing? Or
let's go through. What about in the setup? What do we think in the setup?
So at setup, we've probably all heard the term, be in the arches or the balls of your feet, which again is very important. So, what's happening at the top of your swing, we talk about being in the heel. It could be directly affected by what you're doing at setup, Todd. Yeah. So, a lot of times we'll see people, you can kind of just see, on a video or maybe just a snapshot, they're maybe a little bit in their toes. Maybe they're a little bit in their heels. Yeah. So we really like to see really in the balls of your feet. So, you're looking right around here. You're in an athletic stance. Any sport that you play, you're in an athletic stance. You're not going to be back in your heels or up on your toes if you're getting a ground or shortstop. So yeah, exactly. Looks like we got once you go ahead and look at the question, and I'm going to keep talking here.
So one of the things that we like to use here at the Academy, and we've used this for putting as well too. It's called the Pro Stance. It's probably a little bit designed originally for putting, but we use it a lot to help with the setup too. So what we'll do here is this is basically just like a small or like a tube, like a bike tube, I guess, huh? And now when we're using the swing catalyst, we can tell right away where it's at because we have technology. But maybe you don't have that technology. But this is something that you could make or you could buy, like I said. And we'll just have students get in here and they'll kind of set up, we'll put it, as Sam said, kind of right through the arch, the middle of their foot, and we want them to feel, this is tough.
Yeah.
And I haven't had much coffee this morning. And this is still difficult. But we want want them to be their toes and their heels equally off the ground. A lot of people might be on their toes, okay, then their heels come up and off, that kind of exaggerates that feel, or they might come back this way also as well. You know what I mean? And so I think that this is a good way for them to really kind of feel that.
Yeah.
You know, what do we got for questions there? Do we have
Yeah,
questions?
so Reese said that he feels himself a little bit out in his toes. He was a high-level basketball player.
Okay.
Says he's getting better into the balls of his feet, but, you know, just being aware of those things, it can directly affect, you know, the initial start of your backswing. If you're out in your toes, Maurice, you know, I'd be curious to know what happens with your club taken away, which, again, just working backwards, that can have a big effect on where you're going to be at your golf swing through the shot. So.
Mike, now I haven't had the luxury of watching them hit golf balls. Hopefully someday I will. But my inclination, my guess would be just watching people hit balls would be that if the pressure's out on the toes, the swing probably is working pretty up and down.
Yes.
Typically is what we'll see. So if somebody gets up on their toes, I'm exaggerating, but they get towards their toes, their arms tend to rise, they get a little disconnected.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons. It's a great point you bring up there, Maurice, is that's one of the reasons why we're big advocates about letting the trail leg release a little bit, getting into the right hip, really loading the right glute, or the trail glute we use a lot of, and getting that pressure towards the heels is a key component there. So that's a great question.
I want to just hop in real quick and give a shout out to Maurice. Maurice is one of our regulars. He actually
Yeah.
had his first hole-in-one a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he did.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we want to say congratulations to him
Yes,
for that.
yes, he did.
Where was it at,
Yeah,
Reese?
where was it at? What club was that? We got to hear about that. Yeah, you know.
And then they did ask also what kind of material that is.
Yeah. Well, it's like a firm. I would say almost like a firm. It's not plastic, but it's like yeah, maybe it is a little bit
Hard
but
plastic,
It's like a hard. Yeah, it's not. It's like I don't know what you would call that type of material.
Now, would you be able to use something instead
Yeah,
of it?
you could do like hey
rolled up
Sam,
towel,
go to
perhaps, or-
like a noodle. Okay,
Oh, there you go.
here's our.
I'm a noodle guy here.
Here's our
Yeah.
municipal guy. That was me. I grew up at a muni. That's kind of you could do the same thing. Go to the dollar store. Okay, this might even be harder.
Something that's going to keep your
Yeah.
arches up your feet off the ground a little bit. So if you just have like something that's, you're going to push down with your weight, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between toe and heel.
Yeah. This actually, I haven't really just came off the fly. That worked pretty well.
Background muni.
That's exactly right. Okay, so we've got a couple other questions up there too. Sam, you want to take a look at those? And Sam's looking at that. I want to talk, so let's do a little recap. We've kind of been bouncing around here today. So we got 60-40. We like that because we feel like you can be unweighting. We've talked about the trail leg releasing a little bit. These are things you've heard us discuss earlier. Today we've dived a little bit into really getting that pressure into the right heel. I'd be aware of that next time you go hit golf balls. Not only how much pressure is on each foot, but where is that pressure? And it should be towards the heel. I really believe early in the backstroke. Now, some instructors, there's a lot of ways to do it. Some instructors would advocate that you kind of start up and maybe stay a little left.
Yeah.
A lot of guys do that. Play pretty well. Sam and I, and at the academy here, we believe more, we like the 60-40, but we like to see you increase the pressure into the right foot pretty early. As a matter of fact, that maximum pressure can range, so how much do we get into the right foot? Some of our students might be 60, some of them are upwards around 70. I like to see it somewhere between 70 and 80.
Yeah, that's a good number.
As a general rule, we have some more or less, but I also want to see that happen early in the backstroke. So by the time the lead arm reaches about parallel to the ground, that's when we want to see that.
For sure.
Because then they're starting to break and actually help shorten up the backswing, and seems to work well too. So did we have a couple questions there?
Yeah, Maurice just chimed in telling us where he got his hole-in-one at. Looks like it was in Hampton, Virginia at the Woodlands.
Nice.
And he just asked about the training aid, just if he could use a shaft to stand
shaft would
on.
probably
So
work
that
too.
probably worked well too.
Yeah,
So
shaft will work well.
yeah, something that's just a little bit off the ground that's going to allow you to feel that toe to heel. If you're on one side, then the other side, your toes up if you're on your heels. So.
Yeah. What else? We got a couple other things. Looks like we got a couple other. Jeff had looks like trap light covered. What else? You can scroll up there a little bit too. We have something earlier too. Tyler's here. Better give a shout out to Tyler. It's always good to see him. He always likes to log. He's always got a couple good questions. So let's talk about, and if you got any questions, be sure to fire them in the comments. We'll be happy to answer those. So I want to talk about just a couple more things here before we're done. And this is, I don't want to say it's controversial because I think anything in golf is controversial.
Oh yeah, someone's always going to have an opinion.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what you say, there's always going to be somebody with a different approach, and that's okay.
Yep.
That's what makes golf great. That's what makes golf great. So I want to talk about loading into the right hip and then the transition a little bit.
Okay.
So Sam, give a couple thoughts on what do you think about the transition? What should be happening with the pressure? And then I'm going to give my thoughts too. Because we might have, this would be kind of fun to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So again, when we get back up at the top, that pressure range that we're looking for is anywhere from 60 to 75%. But it's very interesting. You transition to the front foot, a good golfer will transition very fast. So by the time they go from the top of their swing to this arm being about parallel, you should already see about 50-50 pressure, meaning your pressure is going towards your lead foot. Okay, so some people might even actually be going more 60-40 by this point. So as you, again, in transition start to get closer to impact, you're totally changing your pressure from trail to lead foot. So you're probably looking at anywhere, again, from about 70 to 90% by the time that you get to that foot. And we really want to see that number actually getting, increasing the whole way. We don't want to see it all get to 90 and then just kind of stall out. We'd like to see it just dynamically getting more and more pressure into the front foot. So, I mean, again, everybody has a little bit different opinion on this, but we truly think by the time just this little motion from here to here, you've already started to make that transition, Todd, to pressure being in your lead foot.
Yeah, it's a great point. So one of the things that's really interesting to hear different thoughts on this. One of the things that I've had some success with lately, especially with some of our better players, is in this whole, because that's this whole transition thing. That's like the magic. Everybody talks about the moment of truth is impact. I mean, I guess, but really to me, the moment of truth is transition. Because when you have, when somebody walks the doors here and they've got a good transition, I mean, we kind of get pretty excited.
Oh yeah, and then that matches up the impact. So we're always kind of looking that step back.
Yeah. So here's a tip here's something I want you guys to try. For those of you we appreciate you still sticking around and watching. So this I think we're gonna help you because I've worked with use this on with some of my really better players. I want you to have the sensation in your transition that you're almost kind of sitting into the right foot a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to demonstrate that here in a second. And what I mean by that is when you're at the top, so we already know that we've released the trail leg a little bit, right guys? And we got some pressure into that heel. Okay? And I want you to feel like in the transition, just that split second that you almost kind of sit on it just a little bit. Just a little bit of sit, and almost like you're increasing the pressure in your trail foot, and then you actually kind of push up and off your right foot. And the reason I want you to try that out next time, and I'll be curious to hear how that works for you, is because, as Sam said, the pressure's definitely going forward. There's no doubt about that. Okay, there's no doubt about that. However, lots of times, when golfers struggle, they start coming over the top, and they have the slice, all these types of things. What happens a lot of times is they're here, and they just immediately go from the top. And they immediately get going towards the target, and the club swings out and to the left, they start slicing the golf ball. If they can learn to just have that fraction of that sit, or kind of that weight, boom, then they can push up and off the right foot, we'll have a lot of success. So I think that's a good way for them. What do you think on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, most golfers, if you've played quite a bit, you're going to have that natural pressure movement going towards the target. Yeah. But then the next step is kind of learning how to make sure that's an efficient move through the golf ball.
Yes.
So the move that Todd just explained, kind of sitting a little bit, is really going to help kind of your lower body be a little bit more patient, driving towards the target. A lot of times we see golfers, their lower body is kind of sliding forward, whether it's an over-the-top move, or even if they hit a draw, they start kind of sliding this way, and that gets their pressure too far forward too soon. So
yes.
really that tip to feel kind of sitting into it is really going to help with that.
Do you want to maybe demonstrate that down the line? That might help.
Yeah,
some people
so,
see
so
what
from,
you're.
all right, so from here we're at the top, right? We all know we've got a little bit of release. We've loaded the right hip, the right glute, okay? And then in the transition, I'm just gonna just ever so slightly just sit a little bit. And then now I've almost increased my load. And now I can push up and off the right foot versus good turn and just going right away, okay? And then the club tend, not all the time, but typically you might want to work out and across. So just that little bit of sit will help a tad. Now, let me talk about why that is. We got another question there?
No, we just have a couple shout outs. Looks like
good.
we got it from across the pond over
Yeah,
in
nice.
England, Scotland. And it seems like this is a hot topic, the transition with the pressure. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we're hitting on it.
Okay, so let me tell you why. Okay, so here's the thing. We're seeing, like, Sam, would you agree, like, some of the best players right now, let's say, well, Dustin Johnson, trying to think of some of the other guys. I mean,
Rory McIlroy.
Roy McIlroy, yeah. I mean, these guys, would you agree that we're seeing them right now, there's more of a trend to kind of be more open at impact
Absolutely.
versus closed, where they feel, I mean, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of great players right now from down the line here where their body is really opened up. I mean, I'm kind of seeing that. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and again, we're not as flexible as some of those top athletes. So if we get there, just be careful. This is a disclaimer. We didn't tell you to do that, but yeah, you're definitely seeing kind of the whole body, not just your hips, but even their shoulders a little bit open as well.
Yeah.
So the theory behind that is they can have a little bit more control of their club face coming through and using more of that rotation as opposed to kind of that slide move to help the club get through.
Yeah. The reason the reason I'm pretty adamant about this, just this little bit of sit and wait, and then kind of pushing off the right foot, is because in the lead foot, guys, this is kind of, it's not going to blow your mind, but I think this is going to help. Is that when you sit a little bit, then what happens is then you can push, but also then your lead hip can start to rotate and open up. We see so many golfers from even some tour professionals, even to like high handicappers who have impact, are way closed, their hips are stalled, and the club's just here, and it's flipping out and to the right. It's just not a good spot, right?
And the big thing is to understand, a lot of people think that if your hips are open, your shoulders open, you can't hit a draw. We know that not to be true. You can hit a push draw, a great draw by being open. So that's kind of a misunderstanding. You can hit a draw being closed, but probably a better way to control it is being open and using that tip that you gave them.
100%. So here's what I want to do. I got a couple more things, then we got to wrap it up here because I know we need to get going. We got a lot of people who have stayed on for a long time. We appreciate that. But let's go back here and let's see if we can pull up. Let's see here, Nick. Can we pull up this swing? Oh yeah. Okay. Let's look at this swing here. So what I want you guys to notice here, we appreciate you, like I said, sticking around, because we're going to tie this all together for you. So let me go back to setup here. So hopefully now this screen makes a lot more sense. So here's our left foot. Here's our right foot. This is where the pressure is at on the lead foot, where it's at on the trail foot. This is the combined. And then this is their trace. Now keep the trace is kind of like a fingerprint. It's going to be different for each golfer, but this is pretty good right here.
This is great.
It's pretty solid. So as Sam and I were talking earlier, we want to be pretty balanced. Notice that the balance on each foot is pretty much in the center. That's where we kind of use that balance, that foam. Go to the dollar store and buy your 99-cent training aid, right? That's good. You'll also notice now, when this student starts to work back, that this center pressure, watch this guys, watch this right here, see? It starts to work back towards the heel just a little bit. See that? It's not a ton, but we're loading into that right hip. Just that little bit of movement is huge, okay? And then at this point, now we're starting to go towards the target, okay? Now this is what I want, this is why I brought us all over here, because I want you to see this right here. Notice, see where it arcs back. Boom, right there. See that? So the pressure works back towards the heel.
Yep.
Okay? Back towards the heel. Back towards the heel. That right there is worth everything right there. So let's come back there and let me show you what we're talking about there. Because when you see, guys, and gals out there, when you see like, well, I guess I don't haven't seen Dustin Johnson's pressure trace, so I probably better be a little careful. But my guess is that you're going to see them really, we got some more questions over there, Sam. You're going to see them opening up, okay? And the only way to open up, I believe, or the best way, not the only way, let me correct myself. The best way is to give a little sit, and then you can push, and then that hip opens up, and that pressure works back towards the heel. So that's a long way of hopefully kind of describing what it is that we're actually doing there. Sam, we got a couple more questions before we got to wrap it up here.
Yeah, so it looks like Brian had, a different opinion, like we said.
Good.
He had an instructor tell him the initial takeaway to feel it like he was in his right foot, and then when he got to the top of the swing, feeling a little bit more pressure on the left foot.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, like we said, there's a lot of ways to do it. Be curious if you don't mind, Brian, sharing maybe if that worked pretty well for him. And maybe what his normal shot pattern was and kind of how that helped out a little bit. Because the thing about pressure trace, this is why it's kind of a confusing topic, is because the truth of the matter is I don't know if we, as a golf industry, really know what is best. I mean, I think we see things. I mean, I have ideas.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can sit down and, prove them on a scientific piece of paper.
There's some trends, there's definitely some momentum going with, like Todd mentioned, about kind of opening up. But one thing I want to make sure that people understand is, with this trace being the center focus, if you're trying to get open and you kind of have your tip, if you're an over-the-top type of person, it's probably not the best thing to start working on opening up right away.
Yeah,
I would say you
Good
need
point.
to consistently be swinging that club so you're hitting a draw. And so where this club is at when you are opening up is going to have a pretty big impact of where the ball's going, Todd.
That's a good point.
So just understanding that, if you're a typical slicer and it's good to open up, but if that club is still coming over the top when you're opening up, you're probably still going to have that same ball flight a little bit. Would you agree?
Sam's a smart guy. That's what I would agree with. Because I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because I would not, if somebody was slicing the golf ball, probably wouldn't tell them to open up. Not right away. Not right away.
Yeah.
So thank you for clarifying that, because I know a lot of our people who watch this, they tend to slice the golf ball. And I think what Sam really brought to light there, which is probably the most important thing, is you got to, when guys and gals, when you're looking at your golf swing and you're working with your golf coach, and there's a lot of great coaches out there, you want to think about matchups.
Yes.
It's not just it's a swing thought, a swing feel doesn't stand on its own.
No.
That's why we get in these arguments, and I don't want to get on a tangent here, but we get in these arguments in the golf world about, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. It's like, well, you might have to do that if you're also doing the other thing too.
Yes.
A and B, kind of work together. And so the key there is understanding your matchup and understanding what you're doing. And I know here, like we said, like Sam said at the academy, the first thing we would do is we would get the club face under control. We'd start getting them to hit a draw. And when they were doing that, then we would start working on opening up, because we think that's a better way of doing it. But as Sam said, good there, if we had somebody slicing the ball, we wouldn't start with that. So any other quick questions before we got to kind of wrap her up? I think we've kind of talked about a lot of different things here, pressure movement. It's kind of a fun thing to talk about. It is a little difficult because it's pretty vague.
Yeah.
It's kind of all over. What I'm hearing here is that I think maybe next time we need to talk more about transition.
For sure. And Jeff looks like he had a couple questions. He wanted to see the video with the pressure trace. So maybe next time we can have the video with that and be able to kind of see somebody that we could see both.
That's a good point. Yeah, we can kind of attach those two together, the pressure movement and the swing movement. So, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We appreciate you guys sticking on, and we just throw these things together. We have a little bit of a topic we want to talk about. Sometimes we ramble, but I think we covered some good stuff today.
Absolutely, it's fun for us to talk about these topics because we know that's going to help you play better golf. Ultimately, something like this is going to help your golf game.
So if you're not already, be sure to, obviously, you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. We got new stuff. We just did a video, if you haven't watched, on how to shape golf shots.
That'd be a great prerequisite.
Oh, man. I'm telling you what. Well, I don't want to brag, but I'm going to. I think it's the best video we ever did.
It's good.
I really do. Nick did a great job putting it together. I think the information was clear and it was concise. So be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram. And then obviously our main spot, usgolftv.com. We've got all of our stuff there, a ton of the good things going on. And so we're going to wrap her up. We appreciate you coming around, and we'll see you next time. I think next time maybe we'll talk about transition.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.